To the Whistler Sliding Center for the second World Cup event of the 2018-19 season, the Viessmann World Cup Luge to the Olympic track here in Whistler. Hello, everybody. I'm John Morgan, joined by former U.S. athlete Matt Mortensen. And Matt, little fogs rolled in here at the Sliding Center, and how will the weather affect things?
Yeah, the weather here at the Whistling Sliding Center is a bit unfavorable for the race, but it is kind of cold out. But what we will probably see is a bit of frost accumulate on the track, which would slow down the sleds that are later in the draw.
Well, they predicted some nicer weather for us. And, hey, you've been down this track. You've been down all aspects of it. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this track is really interesting. What you want to see from these doubles athletes is a near perfect top section because the sleds are actually going pretty slow. So any imperfections up top will slow the sleds down dramatically for that finish time. Here, the sleds don't really pick up any speed. This is actually curve 7 that they're coming out of now, and then going into curve 9. So the sleds will start picking up some speed coming out of here, curve 10, but really a lot through this curve 11. You want to make sure you have a good entrance and a hard steer out of curve 12 so you can be nice and smooth through 13. Just let it up, little push out of 14. Nice and left side going into the final corner and really push that pressure around and reach for the finish eye.
What's it like when you finish with the perfect run?
That's an indescribable feeling, but as any athlete will tell you, I don't think the perfect run exists because we can always find something. When you're timed to the thousandth of a second, any little bit counts.
15 sleds in the competition. Over 2 runs will determine the winner. They'll go last to first in the second run?
That's correct. That's correct. They will finish the second run with the fastest sleds.
Well, you know, last week, first event in Innsbruck, it was the Austrians on their home track. Stu and Kohler won.
Yeah, I believe that was their first World Cup win, and they actually had a double win. They won in not only World Cup, but they won in the Sprint Cup as well. Very impressive start to the season for the young Austrian team. Well,
the Austrians did well on their track, and maybe the Canadians can do well on their home track.
I would venture to say that the Canadians will do very well. You know, a lot about this particular track is the start because the actual length of the track from curve 7 is so short. So you really need to have that fast start and good clean runs.
Walker and Smith will go 6 for Canada. Now here's our first competitors on the track, some Romanian athletes that you know.
Yeah, these guys, Gitlin and Grechun, are a younger team. I believe this might be their first season competing at the World Cup level. They didn't have the best start to the weekend last night, crashing in their qualifying race. So I would say that they'll be very happy if they can get down with a nice clean run here. These first 2 sleds are just focusing on having nice clean runs.
Okay, to start, now, how cohesive is this? How important is that?
You know, it's a very practiced movement on a doubles team. You have to be absolutely coordinated with your paddles and your pole. Make sure that you're in sync and have a nice smooth settle.
These guys finished 11th in the opening World Cup last week in Innsbruck. How much of an advantage is them going first?
I think that it definitely helps with their confidence. They're going to have the fastest track. That's a big loop, actually, in curve 11. You don't really want to see that, but that's a nice entrance into curve 12. They look like they're having a pretty good run here.
Well, this is where you start to get into the section of the... Oh, he's really looked like on the wrong side of the curve there.
Yeah, a bit late into finish curve there.
Ooh, uphill before the finish line. That's not what you want to do.
Yeah, so this problem actually started going into the third to last curve, curve 14. They kept a little too high on the end of curve 14, which pushed them a little early. They bumped away from 15 a bit, very late into 16, the finish corner, and obviously they couldn't control that loop.
There's that section of the track, and they came in too late. Then you go up and down, the W effect, and then you're going uphill here. You can see the finish line where the blue is. Boy, that's just not what you want to do.
And I'll tell you what, folks, that does not feel good. You're not really wearing a lot of pads underneath those suits, so those hits he's taking directly to his body. He doesn't look happy. I wouldn't be either.
Well, tough start for the Romanians, our first athletes down the track. Do you think anybody was watching that up top, the next competitors? You think their coaches said anything down there?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, some athletes prefer to watch the sleds go before them. I was never one of those athletes. I always just kind of stayed in my zone. But, you know, at the exact opposite, my former teammate Jason, he loved to watch.
Next up from the Czech Republic.
Yep, we have Velček and Pekny. Another new doubles team also looking to, you know, have a good clean run here, just complete it, build some experience. Paddles a little bit off.
Maybe the first time they've ever been on this track, huh?
Yes, I would say this is their first time at this track. So they've only had a limited amount of runs. They started training on Wednesday and had their qualification race yesterday.
18th place at the opening World Cup in Innsbruck, and I dare say, I think there's more fog rolling in on this track. Does that affect the visual lines, or you're close enough?
That's a big loop again in curve 11. Yeah, the fog will definitely affect you if it gets into the track.
4-5 underway down towards the bottom.
Section of the track they call the Gold Rush.
That's not too bad, that line going into finish curve. If they make it nice and clean, you'll see, look for them to pull out.
That's clean right through the finish there compared to the Romanians.
So there must have been a little bit of problems that we couldn't see down below, probably between curves 13 and 14. They lost quite a bit of time in there. But you were asking about the fog before. If it's a very heavy fog, it can get caught in the track, and the top man really won't be able to see what's far in front of him. So your near sight will be okay, but your long distance visual won't be that great. You could see in this replay that he dropped his foot a little bit in curve 11. He didn't quite catch those pressures like he would have wanted to.
Is it hard to be exact on this track?
I think for newer athletes, because of the speed of the track, it might be a little bit hard to figure out who should steer where on the double sled, because we do steer in tandem. So I know there was specific spots on the track I would have my bottom man steer at with me.
Koreans are the next athletes we're going to see.
Yep, we have Park and Kang here. So the top man was from the former doubles team, Park and Cho. So this is a new bottom man for him, but the top man by no means is new to the sport.
Yeah, Park started in 2010. He was 14th place, or in the, excuse me, he was 18th place in the 14 Olympics in Sochi, and then he got 9th last year on his home track in Korea.
Yeah, they actually just edged out myself and Jason. These guys put it together for the games, Park and Cho, and they had a really good showing.
14th place last week in Innsbruck, so looking to improve on that, and they have the green numbers.
Yep, they are ahead. That is what that green marker on the timing eye indicates, is that this team is ahead of the previous team that went.
Yeah, it was 8,000 to the second. Now they're in the red.
Through the corner 14. Oh, they're skidding around a lot down low.
Thunderbird, this is going to be tricky here in the exit. They're straight. Head came up. Boy, did they lose a lot of time. Looked like on the exit 11-12, they were in the green numbers there and lost 3/10 on the bottom.
Yeah, they're not going to be happy with that. What happened is that they hung a little too long on curve 13. We'll see what we see in the replay here. But they went skidding into curve 14. He had no choice but to try and keep the sled as low as he can. He's telling him right now, I was skidding around. I need to sharpen up my steels maybe for the second run is what he's thinking.
So again, new doubles team.
Oh, we've got the Mazders and the Sweeneys over there, our USA cheering crowd.
We've seen them on the track sidelines before.
All right, so I'm excited to see these guys go. Mazur and Turdeman did really well this past week in Eagles. You know, this first year they're really looking to gain experience as a doubles team again. Even though they slid doubles 10 years ago, that's still, it's like starting over. So Chris has done very, very good job getting himself ready and doing all of his doubles training.
Is it safe to say Chris is a little busy on the World Cup Tour now?
He is so busy. I mean, he's doing double training during the week. He's doing double racing on the weekends. It's definitely a lot mentally and physically on an athlete.
Come on, guys!
There we go.
Hey, if anybody can critique that start, it's you, it's your teammate.
Yeah, it looked good. You know, the paddles were in sync. They had a 3:31 start time, which is their fastest start time of this week. I've been watching the splits. People know me as the split guy. But these guys, I don't know where we're at right now, but they're in the green, which is what we want to see. Definitely a sub-39 finish time would be good. Put these guys in a great place. Very nice line through 11, nice and low.
So what do you think of their 10th place finish last week coming out of the blocks in Innsbruck?
I think it's good. Everybody has to start somewhere. Like I said, what they're looking for is a nice clean run. Yeah, this is great. They're over 2.5 tenths ahead. Nice smooth exit. Reach. Great job. Track record.
Track record. Wow, in the fog.
38.505. Track record.
Fastest track on the planet. And
that's a great run for Chris and Jason.
Nice to come to the bottom no matter what happens and say, I just broke the track record.
Yep, that is awesome. That's a great finish time. It looked like they were, you know, the sled was moving around a little bit.
What's that do for your motivation here, huh?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, in this position, they know that there's a lot more athletes to come, so they don't want to get what I would say overconfident, but that's a great run to start with here in this Whistler Sliding Center.
Yeah, Chris has got a little busy day. He's got the doubles here this morning, and then he's got to turn around, or this afternoon, and then he's got to turn around and compete in the singles.
Yeah.
4 trips around this track.
Yeah, the hardest part for the athlete, for Chris that's doing doubles and singles, I did it when I was younger as well, is the speed transition, going from a lower start to a higher start. You have to have the muscle memory to keep up with that, the presence of mind. It's definitely a lot, as I said, mentally on the athlete.
Russia's our next sled, number 5 sled down the track.
I see on the back end of their sled, they actually tried to model it after Egert Bennekin with that phalange that's hanging off the back.
Looks like they launched themselves out of there with a jump. He's still not comfortable on the sled.
So those guys were jumping around quite a bit. They were really fast in the Eagles last week, but messed up in the actual World Cup. They have been going fast in training, fast in the qualifier. I would imagine they'd be close to Master Tournament down the track here, but this race is going to be very close.
And the bottom guy's from Dimitrov. You say, where's Dimitrov? It's up near Moscow, right?
Yep, Dimitrov is just outside of Moscow. They would have competed on Karmanova. These guys are having a pretty good run.
Pretty tight racing here.
A little late going into finish curve, but we'll see if they gain any speed. I don't think they will. I
He
think
was
they'll
really
finish
hooking his
behind.
foot there, wasn't he?
Yeah, just a bit over a tenth behind Master and Tournament. But overall, not a bad run. That start was definitely sloppy. What you want to look for is nice tight cores on the doubles teams, in-sync paddles. They were kind of jumping around on the start ramp and had a very sporadic, uneven settle.
Well, they're 1100ths behind Mazda and just broke the track record. Last week they finished 21st in Innsbruck, so definitely an improved style. Look at the way the sled jumps out of there, the airborne. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, that's not correct. You want to have the sled nice and low and smooth over that hump. What that means is that the top man, the guy who's in control with the handles, came past vertical when he was sitting up. So his weight was back and the front of the nose of the sled came up on the track. He needed to keep his chest more forward to prevent that at the start coming up.
Well, the first of a couple German teams coming up here. And
yep, Johannes Goik and David Gahm from Winterberg.
Yeah, Winterberg, Veltins, well, that's a nice little brewery not far from Winterberg. I've been there a few times.
This is a very fast doubles team. You know, they're ranked 3rd on the German national team. I believe they won German national championships this year. But they haven't had the best start of the season, actually. A little bit squirrely and eagle, so we're looking for them to come back strong. That was a very nice start. Let's see what the time is.
They finished in 9th place last week, just 500ths ahead of the Americans.
Yeah, again, these guys might have a nice clean run. They're a very good doubles team. They look insane. Body style, body position looks good. They're gaining a bit of time on Master and Tournament. That was a big loop for me through 11. You want to have a nice straight line through curve 11. They don't want to come out too much.
600s. See what the clock says here.
Nice
700s.
Gaining time on Master and Tournament. This is they're going to be ahead definitely. Yep.
Another track record by only 900s, 133 kilometers an hour. That's over 80 miles an hour.
So one thing that we want the spectators to be aware of is that all of the races that have happened on this Whistler track come down to the hundredths and thousandths of a second. I believe it was 4 years ago, or actually maybe even longer, out of my memory. But we had a race where the team relay, 5th place from 3rd place, was separated by 5,000ths of a second.
Well, they had the perfect lines.
Yep.
That's what happens with a track record.
Yep. They were a little bit late into curve 13, which means he oversteered curve 12 a little bit. But this bottom section was very nice. If you see sleds going really late into that finish curve, it's really bad for their time because the pressure takes them right up. They can't push pressure around that corner and build more speed.
Well,
They'll be very happy with that run.
Okay, we're up for Polish athletes.
Kim Maluski and Kowaleski.
They finished 12th in the Olympic Games last year in Pyeongchang.
Yeah, these guys are an impressive team. They've been sliding together now for about 4 years, And every year they've gotten better. Their start's gotten better. The top man and the bottom man's confidence has gotten better. And I'd really like to see these guys have 2 clean runs today, nice and fast. Good start.
Last week they finished 8th. They beat the German team that just broke the track record, who are leaders at the bottom of the track.
3:27 start time, very competitive, just 1,000 slower than the Germans that went before them.
How about the sound? What's the sound telling you?
Yeah, the sound, well, right now what it's telling us is that the track workers did a pretty good job. You don't hear too much rumbling. It's nice and smooth track. Yep, Kim Lucy's driving nice lines here right now.
300s deficit.
That was a very good entrance to curve 11. They're losing a little bit of time. You can see that loop.
Drift hit the wall twice before the finish, too. Or they lost a lot of time on the bottom, and I would say they lost a 10. Probably the chance for second place on the exit of the finish curve before the finish line.
Yeah, so what happened is those big curves, if you loop them, and when I say loop, I mean you're not taking a straight line, which is the fastest line through a corner. You have that wave in there. That wave is slow, and the more pronounced that wave is, the slower the athletes are going down the track. The 2 biggest corners for building speed on this track are curve 11 and the finish curve. And if you're not pushing those pressures exactly right, you're going to see it on that finish time. So this is entering curve 11. That's a nice entrance, but he just didn't control the pressure
Look at his
that great.
toes.
Yep, and he let that sled climb up a bit too high on the final pressure.
Well, they're in 3rd, medal position, but boy, we have some athletes yet to come.
Yeah, we're going to see. You know, we have a lot of fast sleds that still have to come. These guys, again, Putins. Yep, Latvians, Putins and Marchikevics. Another young team.
Boy, that was loud.
Yeah, that Latvian coach, he really gets after it. He gets his athletes psyched before they go.
These guys are from Riga?
Yep, they're from Riga, Latvia. They slide commonly on the track. You see rolled up. They're a younger team, but their start is really what has brought them to the game. They've had a good start.
They had a good start to the season last week in Innsbruck. They finished just off the podium in 4th place.
And again, they're really holding with the German. Only 200s behind at the last split. Driving nice lines, but losing time. See?
Speed's not there. Oops. Oh, big skid. That's going to cost them 2,100s back. That's skid. Had to be worth some time.
Yeah, that skid was a lot of time. That big loop, he definitely missed that first steer and finish curve. It's so important. He was driving really nice times until then. Another thing that's going to factor into these next sled's finish times, you can see it's snowing outside, which means that precipitation's building in the track. Those little bits of snow in the track will really slow the future sleds down, combined with the fog. You know, it's that outside condensation is not making the track any faster, for sure.
Oh, that costly, that last little 70 meters to throw your good run away, coming uphill. Boy, in a gravity sport, going uphill, you make a mistake, the lights go out.
You know, it almost seemed like he was sitting up and throwing his arm before they were even across the finish line. He has to have the presence of mind to finish out that run all the way.
Oh, here comes a couple.
Yep, these guys
that we know.
Yeah, Walker and Smith. These guys are a great doubles team. Arguably the best that the Canadians have ever had. They have Olympic medals, multiple World Cup medals. They're overall great guys as well. I would like to see them be very fast here on the start and at the finish.
Yeah, 5th last year in the Olympic Games in Korea. And they walked away with a silver medal in the team competition. Their medal and Alex Goff's medals in the women's singles were the first ever for Canada in the sport of luge at the Winter Olympic Games. Boys, that provided some great momentum to the Canadian luge program.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those guys just had a great start, 3.27, which has been the fastest start, just in the thousands different with the other guys. We're going to look for really nice lines here.
Very well last week at Innsbruck, finishing 12th, but they had the first and second best start time, which was surprising to me.
Tristan's driving great lines here. He's laid back, he's confident. They're
no
still
speed though.
Some time.
No speed. They're 2 or 3 kilometers down in speed. Only 10 others back. That's some of the worst speed through the finish curve that we've seen of all these sleds. Could that be the snow accumulation or the fear of the coming later in the heat?
Yeah, the track could be getting a little bit slower. Tristan looked very nice and laid back, but again, that line in 11 wasn't perfect. What you need to have to be in the medals here are perfect runs, and I really mean that. Every little thing counts. Did you hear them say, ah, that's because they got that red light there.
Oh, the inspection.
It means they got to go and get a sled inspection.
Of the top 6 sleds, they have the worst speed of the top 6 sleds.
Yeah,
so
what
happened?
They'll probably make some adjustments. Maybe they went with their sled a little too sharp just to make sure they have a great first run. I would look for them to improve upon that time on the second run. Again, there are 2 major curves, curve 11 and curve 14. They really weren't that great. Tristan can definitely do better.
It's just said it's one of his best runs today. Didn't have the speed in the bottom. Could that be runner setup?
From an outside point of view, I would tell Tristan that those lines in 11 and 14 could have definitely been more level. He could have pushed more pressure there. He'll see it on video.
So next up, the 10th sled down this track, the Russian team.
Yeah. Vladislav Yushikov and Yuri Prokhorov from Russia. These guys had a great week last week. 3rd in the World Cup, 2nd in the Sprint Cup. They're very confident.
Prokhorov, another athlete from Dimitrov.
Yep. And Vladislav's been sliding great this season. I was talking to him actually last week a little bit. He told me that his sliding preseason was very good. I'd look for them to have a very competitive time here.
Well, competitive. They finished with a bronze medal last week in Innsbruck on the podium at the first event of the year.
Yes, but actually already losing a bunch of time. That was a pretty bad line through curve 11. They missed that first pressure, and he's just losing time as he's going down the track right now.
More down at the bottom here, the Russians now full 100 back.
Speed's decent, 132.6, but they tap. See where they finished, 1,500s back. That's good enough for 4th place. That's just behind the Canadians by 500s.
Yep. Mazda and Turdeman holding on to 2nd place right now, which is great. Walker and Smith right behind them, just a couple thousandths. So just to give you an idea of what I was saying before, that this is going to be a hundredths and thousandths race, is from Mazda and Turdeman, 38.502.
That's close.
You can see they missed their first steer in 11 there and definitely didn't control that second steer in curve 11 towards the end. I haven't really seen a sled go through curve 11 in what I would call a great line.
Well, we got 4 great sleds coming up.
Yep.
So we're going to shuffle some deck of cards before we're done.
Yep.
A couple of Italians here.
Ludwig Rieder and Patrick Rassner. These guys are a younger Italian team, but they've been on the World Cup Tour for a couple of years now. They're known for their fast starts and straight sliding, but you never know what's going to happen.
Not very good at the Olympic Games last year. They finished in 15th.
Yep, nice long paddles there. 3:26 start time, fastest start time that we've seen for this race. Really nice.
Patrick Rassler is a bricklayer. So he started sliding in 06, so he's got some experience.
Yep, they probably took a couple runs on that famous track in Chisana. That was what I call a good line through 11. Nice and low. That's a little landed curve 13. But they're maintaining their speed. We'll see what this split is. See 800s back already. I would venture to say that the track is probably slowing down a little bit.
There they are, 1600s back, 5th place. That's exactly where they finished last week at the opening World Cup and the track in the Eagles.
Yep. Mazda and Turdeman still holding on to 2nd place at the moment. We have a bunch of fast teams left. We have what we call our Super A seed coming up next. The athletes that have consistently finished in the front, although it's still early in the season. These are going to be your top finishers from last week's World Cup.
The lines, look at his toes, the pressure.
That was a really nice line through curve 11, and he actually overdrove the end, which is what made him go late into curve 12 there. And when I say overdrive, I mean he steered off too hard. He didn't let it run enough over to the next curve.
So the Germans are in 1st, the U.S. in 2nd, the Canadians in 3rd, the Russians in 4th, the Italians in 5th, Polish in 6th, Latvia in 7th. We have 7 different nations in the top 7. Great sliding here from the Whistler Sliding Center. John Morgan and Matt Mortensen on the call. And now we get into some of the big guns.
Yep, here we have Wendell and Art, the most decorated German doubles team in recent years. These guys are, I think, 4-time Olympic gold medalists between team relays and individual event. They have world championships, multiple World Cup medals. very, very strong mentally. These guys are performers.
Bavarians, one from Berchtesgaden, one from Schönalba, right next door to each other. And needless to say, the favorites in today's race.
Yeah, where they live actually in Koningsee is one of the most beautiful spots on the World Cup Tour. You'll see it in future racing if you keep watching the live stream. See a fast start from these guys, I bet.
Not very good in the opening World Cup. 7th in Innsbruck. They had a bad first heat, which put them in 11th place. Second round, though, they had the 3rd best time of the heat. But again, only finished 7th. That's a disappointing result for them.
Yeah, that is a disappointing result for them. They'll look to better that here this week in Whistler. They like this track. They're fast. You can see they're already in the lead, but that's because of that fast 326.
Green numbers.
Yep, again, a little bit too loopy through curve 11.
Only by 100, though. 14 thousandths.
They're falling back a little bit here.
Red numbers.
That's a very nice entrance. They could actually catch up if they drive this lap.
132.7, good speed. 200s off the pace. So the Germans are 1 and 2. They launch ahead of Mazda. Tournament are in 3rd. Canadians are now in 4th.
Yeah, that was a nice clean run. You know, I would definitely say the track is slowing down a little bit. Towards the end, I can see it snowing out pretty good now.
Second best speed to their teammates.
Yep, 132.7 kilometers an hour, which translates to roughly, oh, you saw a big cut of ice there on the beginning of curve 11. That's because they got into middle.
That's where there are green numbers, and it went to red at the next clock.
So how this works is, for those that are viewing the live feed right now, if you see a green number followed by a red number, it's generally a mistake that happened before that red number that makes them go behind. So you saw a skid in curve 11. That'll show on the times in curve 13.
Got behind. Okay, we have another formidable duo here.
Yeah, Tony Egert and Sasha Bennekin. These guys all but dominated the World Cup scene last year and had what you could call in a way a disappointing Olympics. They still got a bronze medal, but they definitely wanted that gold.
One of the athletes, Egert's from Oberhof,
and he's actually
from Seoul. Seoul's a famous bobsled area. I mean, Oberhof's an East German training center used to be.
These guys are known for their fast starts and clean sliding. They rarely ever screw up in a race, and I think Tony is sliding with a broken leg right now, recovering from a broken leg. Yes.
And he's still sliding?
Yep. The World Cup points are too important. You can't miss them.
They were 3rd at the Olympic Games last year.
Gaining
2nd last weekend in Innsbruck. Watch the speed, anything over 133. This is the best speed. This will be the leader.
Yep, these guys will definitely pop into the lead. Just by a little bit. And
track records by 100th of a second. All 3 German sleds have the best speed, not by a little, by a lot. They're 2 kilometers better than Mazda, 4 kilometers better the top speed than the Canadians. So the German sleds are well tuned into this track.
Yeah, the Germans are known, you know, not only for their fast starts and clean sliding, but for their technology. For a long time, and, you know, who knows at this point, but they held the most advanced luge technology that we had. I would like to say that countries like the United States, Russia, Canada are all catching up to this because we've kind of developed our own ways of catching up in technology.
With the snow, too. They did
really
this in the snow. Boy,
Yep.
Clean X. Look at him duck and put his head back.
Yeah, very confident there out of the finish, but they definitely lost time in the lower portion of the track. They were a little bit too late into curve 12, or into curve 13, which builds pressure, and you get too early to 14, which makes your transition tough, and you saw they went very late into finish curve. You can take away half a tenth right there just from that entrance.
So here comes our 3rd Latvian sled in the field.
Yep, Andres 6 and Juras 6, brothers. Andres is a little bit younger than Juras, but these guys are definitely solid sliders.
Multiple Olympic medalists, right?
Yep, multiple Olympic medals, World Cup medals. These guys have done almost all.
Think there's any brother disputes in the course of the season? How do these guys get along with each other?
You know, I don't see them fight too much. They have a really good relationship on and off of the sled, which is why, you know, they keep sliding together. They're doing well. You can always count them in at a major race. Not a very good line at all through curve 11. They're losing a lot of time as they go down the track already.
Andres is the older of the 2. He's on top.
No, actually, Andres is younger. Juras is the older brother. He's roughly 2 years old. Yeah, it was a clean run, but
Speed
again,
wasn't there, but still, that's still top 6.
So those guys, you know, Andres, it's very hard to see Andres smile about a run. He's definitely one of those guys that can always find something to improve upon. But he didn't have a very good line. They needed to clean up that line through 11. That was far too what we would call loopy. They had too much a wave in curve 11. You'll see that right here. They missed this first steer because they were too late into curve 11. So they're going to have a very big peak at the end, which they have to control. They're just not building speed, which is what you need when you get into this lower portion of the track.
Of course, the more steering you do, the less speed you're going to have, right?
Yeah. Well, that can depend. If you push that pressure in the right spot and it's a strong steer, but you keep leveled through the corner, you're going to build more speed. You can steer just as hard and miss the steer, and then that'll cause that loop.
Last athletes of the first heat.
Thomas Stoy and Lorenz Kohler. These guys had great results last week. First in the World Cup, first in the Sprint Cup, 200 points to start the season. Definitely where you want to be sitting going into World Cup 2. I'm really excited to see how they do today and see if they can keep up that good, clean sliding.
Well, these coming off their last race last year at the Olympic Games, they finished just off the podium in 4th place, so they came out and set the pace this year with winning the opening World Cup at Innsbruck, their home track, last weekend.
Yeah, a little bit of an unsteady start for them, so not the best actual start when they settled, but their lines right now look okay. Nice smooth entrance into curve 11, but again, really loopy. You saw that correction away from 12. This is okay. He's actually got the lines down, and they're not so far behind.
133 speed will be really give them a chance. 132.6. This should be a top 3 maybe.
Oh, and they're
green numbers in the bottom. Wow, track record.
Unbelievable.
Where did they pull that out of?
I don't know, you know. That means that their equipment is set up very, very well. They were able to gain time going down the track with what I would call not the best lines.
All 3 German sleds had better speed, but this Austrian sled picked up what it did last weekend when they had the best time on both runs. 3 heats in World Cup Luge this year in doubles. All 3 heats, the Austrians are the best team down the track.
And I would argue that they could have even been a 1/10 of a second faster on this run. Easy.
This looked rough.
This was very rough. Like I said, their equipment is definitely set up correctly. They have a competitive start. And if you have that combination, good position, good start, good equipment, that makes a fast time.
Hey, forever in bobsledding, well, we say the rough rides are sometimes the fastest rides.
It can be. You know, that can be an indicator that they're letting loose. They don't have their steels as sharp, and they're set up the sled for speed.
Wow. Come from behind leaders. The Austrians on top of the leaderboard.
Yep. I would actually look for a lot of shuffling around to happen on this second run. I think that the track did slow down. You can see it's not as shiny as it was.
Wow.
We have Stoy Kohler in first. We have Egger Bennekin in second. Goigam in third. Wendell Art in fourth. Mazder Turdeman rounding out the top 5 in 5th. I would look to see Walker Smith improve their run. Mazder Turdeman. You never know what can happen on this track. As I said when we started this World Cup race, is that it's going to come down to the 100th and 1000th of a second that will separate these sliders from moving up or moving back.
Well, the fastest track in the world. The track record just got lowered 5 times.
Yeah, incredible.
5 times we had the track record in the first run.
Yeah, and that's really great.
World Cup Luge, second stop on the tour. The Wiesmann Luge World Cup from Whistler, BC. I'm John Morgan, joined by Matt Mortensen, the former athlete from the United States, and we had a very, very exciting first heat. The weather, though, had a little bit to do with it. We had almost 5 track records in that first heat, and I think that humidity that came in might have made the track a little faster.
I don't know if the humidity made the track faster, but we definitely had a super competitive first run with those 5 track records broken. First with Mazder Turdeman, and then Wendell.
Well, the track, fastest track on the planet. You know, you've been down many times, and
yeah, it's a very quick track. You tend to gain all of your speed in curve 11 and really try and push that speed the westerly way down the track through the finish curve, reaching speeds of up to 82 miles an hour.
Here's your highlights in the first run.
Yep. Goigam recovering from their lackluster performance last week in Eagles. Egert Bennekin performing very well, as they always do.
They're all breaking the track record every time down.
And then the surprise of the World Cup Tour so far, Stoy Kohler in first position again.
You like the sled they're on, don't you?
Yeah, you know, if I was a betting man, I would say that they are using Pence Fischler's Olympic equipment. Just based off of their lines and Stoy's position, he could clean it up. They could have gone way faster that second run.
Well, here's our
First run.
Start list for the second run.
Yep, we'll start with the Czech sled of Vedček Pekny, followed by Park Kang and Gitlin Krejčun for the first 3 sleds.
Well, it's all reversed. Worst to first. You can see the Canadians and the Americans not in bad position.
Yeah, the middle of the pack here is very, very close. Those athletes need to have perfect runs to maintain their positions or to move forward. Everything about this race is between the hundredths and thousandths when you're moving up or moving back in a position.
First up, our team from the Czech Republic.
Yep, Wiedelek and Pekny.
Coming off an 18th place finish last week in Innsbruck. Here they're 15th out of 15 sleds.
Yep.
They had some problems in training, though, didn't they?
They did, actually. They crashed in their qualifying race yesterday. Their first run here in the World Cup wasn't the best. They were skidding around a lot, but it is their first time to this track competing. So I'm sure it's a new feeling for them. They're just trying to dial it in and have clean runs here.
Fog.
Yep, more fog on the track, which means that the condensation and humidity is a bit higher. That's not great for the speed of the track as time goes on. But so far, not so bad. You know, the lines aren't great, but they're keeping it clean. That top man really needs to just push his position back. Yeah, they touch it a little. They're going to touch here.
Still late. I mean, once you get behind, it takes you 3-4 curves to catch up. They're the first people down.
Yeah, they're about a 10th behind. They're actually almost 2 tenths behind their first run time. You know, I just think that the top man doesn't have a lot of experience here. You can tell that he's visibly nervous going down the track. His shoulders are up, his head's up. He's kind of looking around. He does not look confident on the sled at all. And in this track, you really have to push back and be aerodynamic.
Well, the fastest track on the planet will provide some nerves for the athletes. What was it like for your first time down here?
You know, I was a little worried. I had heard people talking about how fast the track was, and I had seen some crazy videos of people flying in the, you know, coming off the ground in the track. So I didn't know what to expect, but fortunately my experience with this track was very positive. I loved it. I slid for a couple of years from the Olympic, or the original Olympic start, not where they actually competed from, but what is now men's start. And I loved the track from up there. In fact, when I was sliding with Jason last time we were here, we took a couple runs there. It was really nice.
So next up, again, worst to first, and this is the 14th place sled in the first treat from Korea.
Yep, Park and Kang, formerly Park and Cho. So new bottom man this year for the top man, Park. He's experienced here. He's had a couple years on the double sled. Definitely looking for him to improve on his first run.
This guy beat you out by 1 slot last year at the Olympic Games.
They did, yeah, they did a very good job. You know, very consistent going down the track. Unfortunately, I didn't have the best doubles race, and I suffered for that in positions. But these guys, you know, they showed a lot of mental strength, keeping it together, and performing really well at the Olympic Games.
The Koreans walked away with 2 medals in skeleton, 1 in skeleton, 1 in bobsled. And do you think they got a chance to improve in luge?
Ooh, that's a bit late into curve 12, actually, which is going to make it, yep, he's a little early on a 13. And again, very low line through 14. I'm not a fan of that line. I think that it, you know, it causes that pressure in the finish curve. They improved their time quite a bit from the first run, 38.909 from 39.442, over a half second in speed they gained on their second run, so he'll be happy with that. But in response to your question, yes, there's many different ways we can gain time going down the track, the first being lines, second is position.
Well, they're the leaders, 2-heat competition, and look at the late lines here, huh?
Yeah, this line through 11 wasn't the best. Again, you want it to be nice and level, but that line right there, very late into 12, that very high pressure in corner 12, that'll slow you down quite a bit.
We're coming off.
But what that tells me is that the track is probably pretty fast still. We've maintained constant conditions from first run to second run, and I would like to see the track record fall again.
They didn't compete, the Koreans, last week in Korea, or in Innsbruck, so this is now our next sled from Romania.
Yep, we have Gitlin and Krejčun here from Romania. Again, young athletes. I believe their birth dates are 99 and 98, maybe even 2000. But They had a pretty good first run. They want to clean it up, and this is their first time here. So this is definitely experience that they're building for the future years.
One of the Romanian athletes in the men's program is from Sinaia. Sinaia, where there used to be an old bobsled track way back in the day, when Romania was a power in the sport of bobsledding. Have they ever been competitive in luge?
You know, they had their top finish in the Olympic Games from Raluca Stramaturaro, actually with a 7th place in this past Olympics. So Romania is up and coming, and I've been to Sinaia. It is beautiful.
You been there? You slid?
No, just tourism, actually. Not a great line through curve 11. That's a lot of pressure. A bit early into 12. Let's see if you can control it. Too early to 13. That could cause problems down here.
Quarter of a second, though.
They're going to... Yeah. Okay, he's able to hold on
no
to
speed,
it.
though. 125. That's very low speed. Couple hits. Watch out.
Just like the first run. But again...
Oh, they crashed.
Okay.
Now what happens here?
Yeah, that's not fun. You know, hitting those walls really hurts. I feel his pain. He did that on the first run.
Look at the way they put the sled sideways. That gives you how much of a reason how wide the track is.
Yeah, so he put the sled sideways to stop the sled from going backwards down the track, because where they're going into right now is the finish. And this is where all the problems started. Once you go off of what we call your line, it's very hard to get it back.
He's real low there, huh?
He's real low, which made him go too early to curve 14, carry that pressure to the end. They hit too early to 15, very late into finish.
Is this they come in to finish, they loop here. Look at the way they...
Yep. Too much
on the
pressure
wrong
on
side.
the
Look how high they are there.
He completely missed that first steer, and you know, and the end result is this: you start hitting those walls really hard.
Hey, I'm surprised to even maintain the lead, because you go uphill in a gravity sport. Look at him airborne there.
Not only did he maintain the lead,
wow,
he was 2/10 faster than his first run.
Well, it tells you about how fast this track is.
Yep, the track is definitely a bit faster than the first run, it seems.
What do you think they're saying up top right now? Wow, the track's fast?
Yeah, I think, well, you know, we have Putins and Marcinkevich here, known for their fast start, 3:27, the fastest one we saw in the first run. I believe it was at 3:25. So very competitive right from the beginning. These guys had problems in the lower portion of the track last run, so they're going to look to clean that up on this one.
Here comes this Latvian sled. Putins and Marcinkevich, 3:27.
Well, they got green numbers.
That was actually a very nice line, one of the better lines we've seen through curve 11.
7/10 of a second in front here. A lot of that will come from.
He's controlling the sled very nicely as he's going down. Good entrance in the curve.
Big speed. That's the biggest speed we've seen in either run so far.
And he manages to keep it off the wall, 38.501. Very good finish time for them.
Wow. Does he have a bad first run and a much better second? That's the best speed, and we've seen the Germans hit 133.5.
And I'll tell you what, he had a very good line through curve 11, a very nice straight line. They should actually show us that line on the replay. Maybe we'll see it. Nope, this is actually 14 into 15. He does a good job at controlling the sled, and they just missed that steer on the beginning of finish curve. See, he let it rise just a little too much, but he did a great job.
Look at him exit the straightaway. Perfect. A little bit of a drift there, but not bad.
You know what? They were able to keep the sled under control, which is what caused that increase in finish time, almost by 1/10. So those guys are going to be happy with that run. And you know what? We could see them stay exactly where they are. The next sled up, I don't know how to say this last name. We're going to say Sevalod Kashkin and Konstantin Korshinov. They're actually tied to the 1,000th of a second.
Come on,
the Latvian sled, to the 1,000th.
Figure that out.
So these guys are at even. It's like the runs didn't happen. Oop, that's a very hard way to settle. He didn't get his hands in, so that'll make the sled unstable. But 28 start time. Again, these guys they're fast on the start, but they haven't shown the tightness of the core. They need to be more stable going down the ramp. 400s behind already.
Is that relative to the start mishap?
Yes, definitely. And now, you know, again, a very loopy line in curve 11, but somehow they're still gaining some speed.
Yeah, he went from 4 behind to only 3.
We'll see if they can drive a good line.
Green line, green numbers, but not the speed.
We'll see, though. You know, they might stay ahead. And they do. 38.3. 38.369. That is a great finish time. That would have actually been a second place finish time on the first run.
So we're just probably a couple sleds away. We might see 7 or 8 track records here.
Yeah,
consecutively.
You know, I know that these guys are fast. I saw their times last week in Eagles. They proved that they could be fast. They just need to put it together. It comes down to inexperience. They need to get more experience for these North American tracks. And just as a doubles teams in whole, they're also very young. First season on the World Cup Tour. 25 hundredths quicker in the second run. Yeah, that's really impressive because these lines, they really weren't great. You'll see a very big dip in the middle of curve 11, a lot of pressure on the exit. If they would have nailed that steer, they would have definitely had a 10th faster of a run, I'd say. But yeah, they look good on the sled. Nice and tight. And when I say that, I mean it looks like one person on the sled from that front view.
With those guys from
Great
Dimitrov outside of Russia, outside of Moscow.
Yeah, right by the Paramanovo track that we no longer slide at.
Okay, so we have our friends from Poland.
Yep. We have Wojciech Kimliski and Jakub Kowaleski from Poland. These guys also very good starters, up-and-coming doubles team. They've been on the World Cup Tour for a couple years and improving every year. Their first time was a 3:27. We'll see if they can improve that. Nice stable paddles. You see that sled barely moved.
So when you come out of the block, did you scream or anything coming out of the block? Or you just quiet?
No, I was quiet. I was a quiet starter. I like to focus on what was ahead of me. I just felt like the screaming was an outside distraction. But I didn't mind if people were yelling at me. I enjoyed that. Yep.
Green numbers.
Already ahead, and that is what I'm talking about. That's a nice line through curve 11, building the speed. They're driving really nice lines here. They're increasing in their speed, but they're falling back in time, and that could be they could be victims of sled setup.
First time they've ever been on this track.
400ths back, but this finish time will still be good. He needs to keep his feet up through the finish. 38.556.
Keeps them they fall back a little bit. Couple spots.
Yeah, they're 500ths faster than their first run. The lines weren't so bad, but he's still a little nervous coming out of that finish curve. You can see him tapping his foot down a little bit. He just needs to be more confident. And
eighth in the race last week in Innsbruck, so they won't finish most likely in the top 10 this week. So, but again, they've never been here before. They've never been here before.
Yeah, they actually won't finish out of the top 10. No worse than 10th place for these guys based off of their first run. But, he just let it get a little bit ahead of him down there. He blade back. It's one thing I did actually was a mistake of mine sometimes was laying too far back because you're really trying to squeeze the time.
There's our leaders.
Yep. But you need to pay attention sometimes just to nail the line right.
Here comes some Italians that we thought would they do a little bit better, Ryder and Rastner in the first run.
Yeah, they had a really good start that first run, 3:26. If they keep the same speed on their start and clean up their lines down low, they can really have a fast run here. Oops, a little bit of moving around on the start ramp there, not the best for your start time.
They've been here before. They've got experience on this track. They were 5th last week in Innsbruck.
These guys are definitely a good team. I think, if anything, they just need more runs and to keep on building on their top man's confidence. He just needs to be more secure on the sled and not be so nervous going down sometimes.
15th at last year's Olympics in Pyeongchang, Korea.
That's another beautiful line through curve 11. You can already see the increase in speed. This is where they had their problems first run.
This is on the verge of another track record. If they get it 10/100, they lost the time back.
But remember, those other sleds had problems out of the finish.
Yeah, they lost a lot of time down in the finish. Look at that. So how good were the Russians in this heat, or how bad were they in the last heat?
Well, I think that the Russians performed more to their potential. As I said, we saw they were really fast last week. And they were a little bit more, the lines were a bit worse than the Italians, but that means their sled setup was probably faster. These guys are consistent, but sometimes they need to let it go a little bit more. They need to let the sled be a little bit more free. They're driving these great lines, but that can be, over-controlling too. So, it's a really intricate sport when it comes to those maneuvering with the steers. Yeah. It can catch up to you. There's definitely a point where you can oversteer, and a point where you're just letting it run too much. And you've got to find the fine line in between those two things.
Well, they were smooth there in the finish. They lost time in the bottom. They look, you know, the roughest ride can be fast. That looked like too smooth of a ride. Maybe they too much steering.
That's what I said, is you got to find that line in between steering too much and not steering enough. And that's where you're going to find your speed. And also on equipment, between being too sharp or too round, you gotta make it right in the middle. And it's tough when it's weather like this.
Okay.
And here we have Vladislav Yushikov and Yuri Prokhorov. These guys are decorated. Vladislav, he's a good friend of mine. He's had World Cup medals, you know, almost 10 years back, and just has struggled to find the speed sometimes. And this year he's really brought it. They had a 3rd place in the World Cup, 2nd place in the Sprint Cup. We'll see what they can do on their 2nd run here.
Getting close to seeing a track record come down.
Yep.
Someone's going to break it here. Just a matter of which sled.
Really good start for them, 3.30. That is faster than their first run. You know, the one thing that's different about these guys is they're still on older equipment. And I say that you can tell because you can see the bottom man's knees as you're going down the track, which makes their front picture, the front view of the sled, bigger. Not a very good line through curve 11. He can steer better than that, I know it. But they're still gaining some time. 3,300ths in the lead.
Wow, this is track record.
It's going to be very, very close. I don't know.
No, they just lost it all back.
Hold on to it. I would say they won't. That little touch, couple hundreds
second
behind.
Consecutive sled lost all sorts of time in the Thunderbird curve, the finish curve. Little misleading that time, and you see them be that much of a lead, and then all of a sudden they. 2 consecutive sleds have lost in the finish.
It's really unfortunate that that happened. You know, again, as I said, their front picture of that sled, their aerodynamics aren't as good as some other sleds. They're a little bit wider. You can see his arms are sticking out a little bit as he's going down. That's really important here. Again, this line through curve 11, it's slow. They have to make a level line through there, and that's your speed for the bottom portion of the track. If you see a sled looping or being wavy through that portion of the track, chances are they're going to lose some speed, and it can be significant in the lower portion of the track.
Well, the fastest track on the planet, aerodynamics are very important.
Yeah, aerodynamics are very important, especially because this particular race is so short. Yep, the young guys still leading, so they actually are no worse than 8th place now. It's a race within a race
against them Russians.
Yep, and definitely that's that young Russian team's first time here. Here we are, very decorated team, Andris 6 and Juris 6, brothers from Latvia. They live in Sigulda. Very decorated, Olympic medals, World Cup medals. We'll look for them to increase their speed here on this run.
3:30 is their start time in the first run, and you see if they can match it, and they go better.
You hear that Latvian coach yelling there. He's known for that. I love it. He's cheering his athletes on right as they start.
Must have come from bobsled.
Yeah, maybe. He's actually an old singles athlete from Luge. Slid some doubles too. But these guys are looking good. 700s ahead right now. That's an okay line through 11. Still a little dip in the middle, but they won't see too much loss of speed down here. Nice line through curve 13.
Multiple Olympic medalists, these two guys, right? Two brothers, only brothers.
I would look for them to actually pull ahead by a little bit more here at the finish. Actually only a 33.30 or 38.39, so they lost 200s in the finish curve there.
400s off the track record, though.
Yeah, what you'll see, you can see Andris, the top man, reaching with his foot, and he's like waving it around at the bottom. He thinks that the light's low there because we look for the finish light and try and get our foot to cross it first so that the time stops earlier.
But they moved that light. They moved that light.
They moved it farther up the finish ramp. But the height, it's actually, if you ride at your normal position without dipping your toe, you're going to hit it first.
So you're telling me if they take this all the way through the finish curve, you'll see his foot move.
Yeah, he's going to bring his right foot down. See here, watch. Yep.
Right there.
And
so
he actually probably stuck his foot. Yeah, he probably stuck his foot under the light because it's a little bit higher there. And that's what they're trying to do. You'll see the athletes try and reach for that light so they stop it first. And that's your 200th difference probably.
How much love lost here between the Latvians and Russians?
Everybody gets along. You know, there's no like real non-companionship in the sport, I would say.
Well, here comes some home track boys right here.
Yeah,
Tristan Walker, Justin Smith.
Yep, these guys, I think they were a little disappointed in their first run. I would look for them to be faster. Known for their fast starts and good position. They've had a lot of experience on this track.
Calgary guys.
Yep, originally from Calgary, but I'll tell you what, they take so many training runs here in Whistler in the preseason. I've heard it's a nightmare, 12 runs a day. I wouldn't want to do it,
on
but
this track,
you know, it's a lot.
Well, they've got a very demanding
nice
German coach, that's for sure.
Very nice lines already, over a tenth ahead. Much better curve 11 than his first run. He really missed the steer the first time, but they're still losing a little bit of time as they go down the track. We'll see if they can hold on to the lead here in the final curves.
5th in the Olympics last year in this competition, but they medaled in the
I would look for them to finish ahead of the Latvians here. Yep, held on by just a little bit.
38-36-8, that's within a thousandth of the second. It's 38-35.
Yep, 38-36. So that's actually just a hundredth lower
off the track record.
Yep. So,
I knew we were close.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see the track record get broken in this second
round. Question is how many times?
Yeah, I would say, you know, at least 4 times it's going to happen. I would really hope that Chris and Jason can be the first sled to do it. They're coming up next, Mazda and Turdeman, in their second race together. They've been doing so well. I'm very proud of them. You know, I can't wait to see what they do on this next run.
Very consistent, both runs. They didn't have any speed in the first run on the bottom part of the track. It was better this time.
But the big difference was that the Canadians' line in curve 11 was a lot more level than it was the first run. The first run, they really looped curve 11 and really looped the finish line. So let's hope for some really good lines from Mazda and Turdeman here. Nice stable start, and we'll see where we end up.
So Chris Mazda's basically replacing you on this sled. This is your Olympic sled, the same sled,
this
same
is the
setup,
same sled that
everything?
They might have changed the setup a little. You know, that varies from athlete to athlete, but that's definitely the sled that Jason and I raced on during the Olympics. It's great equipment, and the athletes are great. We'll see what they can do.
And let me ask you this. Are you the same size as Mazda?
No, Chris is a lot heavier than I am, actually. 10 kilos, almost 20 pounds heavier than I am. And you know what? Quite frankly, he's stronger. The weight is different on the sled, so we want to try and keep our weight over the middle of the sled, so they have to change some things around to make that possible for him and Jason. They're already falling behind a little bit.
Why did you stop?
You know, I got a little bit older. I'll talk to that in a little bit. They're gaining time, 200ths ahead, 200ths faster than they were. This sled and these athletes gain time going down the sled. Little skid there between 14, 15.
200ths, 130
speed. Another 100ths back. Reach. He wants to reach for the finish line. Oh, 700ths. They move back 2 places.
2 spots.
That'll move them to currently no worse than 7th place. But you know what?
Still, that's great finish.
They're having a great start to the season. Right now, they just want to learn each other, how they're driving down the track. Doing very, very well.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
You know what? They were actually building time as they were going down the track, which was great, but they had a little skid in between curves 13 and 14. This dipped a little bit, but not too much. That end pressure was a little high. But what happened is between curves 13, 14, and 14, 15, right there was a significant skid. They skidded up curve 15. But they managed to get it back under control between 15 and 16, which is great.
So their first 2 events of the season together, replacing you, how do you grade them?
You know, I think if we're going to go 1 through 10, I'd say they're at about a 7 right now. You know, they're sliding well. This is a lot for Chris between training for doubles, training for singles, qualifying,
later on today,
racing.
Chris Mazda later on today is in the singles competition.
It's a lot. It's really a lot. So he's doing great. All right, very decorated team here. Toby Wendell and Toby Art, 4-time Olympic gold medalists, multiple-time world championship world champions, and overall World Cup winners. You name it, they've done it. We are going to see them have a fast time. Very consistent sleds here.
7th place last week in Innsbruck. A little disappointing for the defending Olympic champions from 2014 and 18.
Yeah, last week was not the strongest for them, but they had a great start just now. 3.260, faster than their first run. They're already sped up.
So this is a race within a race.
Yeah, if they can drive clean lines, I would look for them to break that track record right here. That was an okay line through curve 11, a little bit high on the end.
This pace,
that's very late into curve 13. But he got it back under control.
Yep, 1200s, 132.6, big speed. Look at the feet, though, come off the sled there to hit. Boy, they lost some time. There's a track record.
Yep,
The first of
first
at
one.
least a couple more we're going to see.
38.292.
But that was sloppy.
Yeah, that was a sloppy run, but you know what? They probably changed their setup a little bit. They're over 1/10 and a half faster than their first run. But we have to say, just based off of the conditions, that the track is increased in speed. All of these sleds have their second run have been faster than their first run, and it seems that is happening regardless of how well they drive.
What's happening here?
You could see some ice spray from under that right runner in the beginning of curve 11. They just overdrove that, and what happened is they drove themselves into a hole. Right here, though,
you saw the spray there.
And this is why they went so late into 13. So they lost a lot of time, theoretically, down the track from what they could have had if they did not skid in those corners. You could hear Tristan commenting on the cutting of ice, saying that must have been the fast line because he missed that.
Missed that too. Okay, now we're dealing with the medals now.
Yep, Robin Goika and David Gaum from Winterberg, Germany, or Winterberg as the locals say it. These guys, you know, you never know if they're going to have a great run or an okay run. They're still working on their consistency, but overall they're a very fast sled and a team to be reckoned with.
2.5 lead over their teammates.
Yep, nice start time, 3:27. They actually tend to take it easier in training with their start times and really go for it during the race. So that difference can be about 500ths actually.
So their home track, Winterberg, Germany, that'll host the World Championships later on in the season here.
Line's looking very good so far. Nice low line through 11. That's the kind of line that I like, but they're still losing some speed to the Tobies. We'll see if they can gain some time back here with better driving.
Red numbers.
Yep, they fell behind.
Speed 133.
They're
They got the speed. They could catch him here.
I think that they will.
Yes, by 100.
100th of a second. And listen, the reason why they were able to gain that time back is because those lower lines were very good. You saw the Tobies go very late into curve 13, and these guys were middle, which makes the flow of the track better for that lower portion of the track. That's what we're talking about here, hundredths of a second.
They didn't find the time on the bottom of the track as much as the other guys lost the time.
Yeah, well, they drove good lines. I would say they found it because you still, as an athlete, have to, or as a doubles team, have to drive those good lines in order to catch that time. So these guys drove great lines on the lower portion of the track. They didn't cut as much ice going into curve 11 as the Tobies did. So it's all these small little things that build up. When you're dealing with a sport that's measured to the thousandth of a second, everything matters.
They just came down about a mile and a half.
And here's a celebration, man. I love seeing the emotion from the athletes when they come up. I was always very emotional, waving my arms around if we did well. You know, it's what people like to see. I like to see it as well.
Here comes our third German sled in a row.
Yep, we have Tony Egert and Sasha Bennekin. These guys are incredible sliders, very consistent. They dominated the World Cup circuit last year in doubles. You know, I would look for them to have a great run. Probably break the track record again.
The last time we had a race on this track in December 16, it was only a one-heat race. These two guys won the competition.
Yep, and they're a little bit slower actually on their second start time. We'll see if it affects them going down the track. They're still in the green. 600ths ahead. That on this track is a lot of time to work with. Nice setup for curve 11. So pretty good line.
They were in second place last week in Innsbruck.
Gaining time. Very nice line so far down this track. Tony and Sasha look very good. Nice middle entrance. They're losing a little bit of time.
Big speed.
If they don't, that's it.
Big, two mistakes though.
Oh man,
they hung on.
Unbelievable.
They lost 500ths in that last curve.
I really thought that they would fall behind there. You heard me say that's it, and that's because
look at his arm. Look at he's reaching for his arm.
Well, because they hit that wall hard. Those walls don't feel good at 80 miles an hour. I'll tell you that. But, you know, this does tend to happen, and the reason why he was still able to stay in the lead is because they pushed all that speed towards the bottom, and those walls, even though it would slow you down, and it did slow them down, they just weren't as head by as much as they would have been. But this was pretty significant.
They almost threw them off the podium right there.
Yep, they're very lucky that they were able to stay on, but, you know, it's something that we've seen, you know.
See him hit his helmet.
With these new German athletes and the equipment and everything, these walls that they're hitting, it would take away from the amount of time that they were ahead, but you know they're not losing as much time.
So now the three German teams got to look on to the only the team they want to chase down.
So Germany is guaranteed at least 2 medals currently, and we're looking to see what happens with these guys. These guys were, you know, first in the 2 races last week in Eagles. They're first right now. This is an explosive start to the
Thomas
season. Amazing
Stu,
start.
Lorenz Kohler.
Yep.
All they've done so far this year is win all 3 heats in doubles luge. Let's see if they can do it 4 for 4.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with how they've been sliding. That was a very good start. He was a little off balance when he settled, but that's all right. These guys gained a ton of time down the track at the bottom.
And they're behind red numbers already.
They were behind up top last run, and they gained as they went, so I would expect them to see again.
They have 300s in the bank to play with. 300ths of a second.
They're maintaining their speed, 29 hundredths ahead. As I said, they gained their time with poor lines down, actually. They're gaining more time already, driving way better lines. That's very late into curve 13. We can see
high there.
That, wow.
It's a little out of control.
He is just holding on.
No, he doesn't have it. How many spots is he going to fall? Whoa, second run.
4th place for Stoy Kohler.
Oh, look at that. 1st to 4th. So, might have been the commentators' jinx when they said they had won the first 3 heats of the season.
But
they just posted a terrible heat there.
They got really lucky that it wasn't worse. A team with less experience, we probably would have seen crash, to be honest.
They beat the Canadians by 1,000th of a second.
Yeah, that's, you know, as I said, everything matters on this track. Everything matters on every track, but this track more than others, it's measured to the 100th and the 1,000th of a second. Stoy and Kohler, they were really all over the place at the bottom. They went super late.
How disappointed are they, you think?
I think that they're definitely disappointed, yes.
They lost a World Cup lead, too.
Yeah, here's a luge. No, they might have lost
1st to 4th, because Eckert was 2nd last week, so he'll take over the World Cup lead.
Potentially. We'll have to see what the points breakdown is on that, because they'll have 260 points now. But
look at this, though.
But, you know, he lets it go a little too long in curve 11 there, which builds a little too much pressure here, but he overdrove curve 12. They went too early. They're lucky they didn't crash there, and they didn't really hit this wall hard.
Yeah, they were on the wrong side of the straightaway there, going to the finish. They're looping the finish. Then they hit here, too.
Yeah. Here's the thing that we love to say in luge, though, is that these guys have speed. They messed up and they were still fast. They have speed and they're going to continue to have speed. So this is still, even though they didn't have the place that they wanted, a very positive sign and a very positive finish for those 2.
Germany 1, 2 with 3 of the Austrians in 4th, Canadians and Americans in 5th and 7th. But
another great showing for Mazda and Turdeman. You know, not the best lines on the second run. They could have easily been in the top 6 or top 5 this week. So very positive start to the season for them.
Field of 15, the first of 2 races we're going to have here today. So another hour from now we'll be at the start of the men's competitions. Make sure you tune in for that. But Matt, I think it was an exciting race. The fact that these 2 Austrians just couldn't hold on to the lead. There's the Germans celebrating as they are used to in the doubles luge. But I like your comment about they have speed.
They do have speed, and, you know, that's a very positive thing for them to have. It's not going to go away. Let's put it that way. You know they just need to get down, and they could potentially win the race. So that's a good thing to have in your mind.
Well,
we'll see what the points breakdown is now after the flower ceremony, and see if they maintained their hold on the overall World Cup lead or not.
I think that they're going to slip at least 1, if not 2 spots. But the fog rolled in here onto the Olympic track built for the 2010 games, and its reputation as the fastest track in the world, well, it's been maintained. They just broke the track record 10 times today, probably.
Yep.
So congratulations to Tracy Seitz and his crew. And
I think our top speed for today was roughly 83 miles an hour.
On a sled with your, 8 inches off the ice.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. You know, I definitely miss it as a retired athlete already. I haven't been retired that long.
So why did you retire?
You know, it was my time, age, and my body wasn't holding up the same way it used to. I actually had a pretty bad injury right before opening ceremonies at the game that I kept quiet. I was literally being carried to my bed. So, it just kind of told me, okay, maybe my back's not ready to continue for more time, and just thought about everything, the whole picture, and I don't want to slip any discs. Luge athletes' backs are what skiers' knees are to them, and I didn't want any long-term life remaining injuries, and I just figured, Jason and I have performed to our best. We just missed out on a medal in Pyeongchang, and it was my time to go. But I can come and do fun things like this and talk about them and watch a new team do excellent, watch these guys and commentate. Well,
you did commentary as well as you slide. We're just waiting now on the World Cup standings, and little debate in the who's going to be the leader, but I think that the Germans are going to take over the lead, and I think our Austrian buddies are going to fall into second. But hey, so at 14 or at 16:40 is when we're going to come on the air again for men's single luge. Chris Mazda, the only person from doubles coming into the men's luge field.
Yep, that'll be 4:40 on the West Coast and 7:40 p.m. on the East Coast. So, yep, still waiting on those World Cup results. We'll see if they post here before we get cut off. But I'm interested to see if Stoy and Kohler held on. I know that they should have roughly 260 points. There they are, Sip.
They're still there.
Yep.
How do they do that? I don't understand it. Because speed points, you get speed points and everything?
So, you know, there's 100 points for a win, and then I believe 85 points for second place and 70 points for third. So they already had 2 wins, which gives them a very large lead ahead of the next closest sled. And they only got 60 on that
last one. So what do you mean 2 wins?
So they had the Sprint Cup win,
the Sprint Cup win.
Which counts as a World Cup
Okay, so
win,
that's those
and the World Cup win. So that's 200 points. That's why we say you cannot miss any races. You can't miss a Sprint Cup. Mazda Turdeman in 10th place there, 121 points.
9th.
Yep. This is a great start for Mazda and Turdeman. I'm really happy to see that they're doing well and just having small mistakes.